When we think of the coast, this is the image that usually comes to mind: a thick carpet-like cover of littoral and mangrove forests bordering the sea. Littoral forests represent a small but fragile area comprising of species like the black poisonwood, red and white gumbolimbo, wild sea grape, coconut, and several shrubs. Mangrove forests thrive in this climate as salinity, wave action, and tides are ideal conditions for growth. There are 4 types of mangroves living in Belize: the red, white, black, and buttonwood mangroves. For a long time, mangrove and littoral forests have been dismissed as unappealing and useless. But science has since proved that the ecosystems provide habitat for many reef species and endangered terrestrial species, as well as a number of birds and reptiles. But most importantly, these areas serve as a buffer, trapping pollutants so they don't reach the sea, and protecting the mainland from erosion and storm surge. But before our very eyes, littoral and mangrove forests are disappearing.
We are seeing a lot of development taking place along the coast. We have no national scale threat hazard mapping for this country. That's why we are seeing a lot of impacts taking place from flooding activity when there is a tropical storm. People lose property, we lose infrastructure, we lose, agriculture farms and so forth.
Nadia Bud is the Mesoamerican reef scientist and climate change advisor for the World Wildlife Fund in Belize. The WWF has been a strong advocate of the need for an integrated coastal zone plan.
Because then it will provide guidance of where development should take place, what type of development should take place, and so forth. So that before the person decides to buy the land or develop the land, then if it's not feasible, that would have been taken place or conferred towards that person from the beginning. From the moment that person decides to develop the land or purchase a piece of land, all the different governmental departments should be given input into that. Now, if we have a coastal zone management plan, an integrated coastal zone management plan, that I think would be taken into consideration from the onset.
The thing is to have everyone adhere to that plan, that all the various permitting agencies are in agreement with that plan and everyone uses it as their master plan, not just coastal zone, but everyone. And I think that we haven't reached that stage yet, and that's where I think we need to move towards.
In 2007, scientists from the World Resources Institute conducted a study entitled Belize's Coastal Capital: The Economic Contribution of Belize's Coral Reefs and Mangroves. The scientists estimated that coral reef and mangrove-associated tourism was worth between $300 million and $400 million. Reef and mangrove-dependent fisheries netted Belize between $28 to $32 million, and coastal protection from storm surge and erosion was estimated to be between $400 million and $600 million. But despite their significant importance, the benefits of the reef and mangroves are all too often ignored in coastal investment and policy decisions. In an effort to break that cycle, in 2009, WWF Belize launched the Mangrove Friendly Development Challenge.
It's setting a stage for us to show good practices, to try and highlight mangroves as not just a pest, but something that can be landscaped, and used in a property as a part of green design.
We're not just about, locking up these areas and anti-development as, sometimes the perception is out there of NGOs, but rather we're all about trying to find a balance between the environment and development, because we recognize and realize that development is extremely important for a country to grow.
Yvette Alonso is the coordinator of the Association of Protected Areas Management Organizations, APAMO. She agrees that continued education and awareness by organizations like APAMO play a key role in changing the public's perception about the resources.
Half of our members, for example, don't have a salary. They operate on a voluntary basis, so that should tell you, how committed and passionate they are about the importance of these resources for our very survival and development. We don't feel that development can occur without the proper management of our resources. If we destroy them, then we consider that development will also be affected negatively.
Managing environmentally important areas has been a constant struggle for successive governments, mostly because of a lack of financial resources. This is where the non-governmental community comes in, filling the monetary gaps to ensure that the education and awareness programs are in place, that rangers patrol the seas and hike through the underbrush to make sure everyone's following the rules. For more than 2 decades, the relationship between the government of Belize and the NGO community has been on an ad hoc basis.
We did a survey of both the co-managers and the government entities, and they both have had very different understanding of what their roles and responsibilities were. And I think therein comes the conflict sometimes that can be avoided by having better agreements.
As a result, in 2009, a new standardized agreement was created and is designed to ensure effective, efficient management of Belize's most vulnerable resources. But a year and a half later, the proposed co-management agreements, as well as revised regulations to strengthen mangrove protection, are still languishing in Belmopan. And while the bureaucratic wheels turn slowly in the capital, coastal clearing and destruction is moving full speed ahead. Environmentalists and conservationists agree that all ecosystems are intricately related to each other. So what would happen if mangroves and littoral forests weren't around anymore? Without mangroves, the reef species that depend on them for nursery grounds and habitat, including commercially important species like snappers and lobsters, would disappear. All the coastline that mangroves helped stabilize would disappear. Some of that eroded material would end up as sediment, smothering corals and reducing the clarity of the water. All the pollutants and garbage trapped in the mangrove roots would contaminate our marine environment, including the seafood we eat. And all that combined means that the tourists that visit Belize annually to enjoy our resources would disappear. According to the environmentalists, there is a way to balance protecting the environment and allowing for development. Designation of sacrificial sites and sacred areas through an integrated coastal zone management plan. But such a plan needs support from both policymakers and the general public.
It is a challenge for us, but through education, we try to bring out the value of these areas, the value that they hold in terms of the ecosystem services that they benefit from, such as clean water, clean air, as I mentioned before, things that they can relate to food, having more fish in the sea, by having marine protected areas in place, trying to make that link with what really matters to them and then why these should be protected.
If we don't come up with a coastal zone management plan, we can expect to see continued impact on our natural systems, on our reefs, on our mangroves, that are the two of the main prime generators for our economy. So we need to try and put a plan in place as soon as possible. We can't wait any longer.
For information on how you can join the demand for an integrated coastal zone management plan and save our resources, please contact the Healthy Reefs for Healthy People initiative at www.healthyreefs.org.